So one of the things I knew I wanted to do was to put a few standard accompanimental patterns down on a video for you guys. And this is really because it kind of will help you stimulate your mind in terms of how you put things together with your chords. So we've looked at different ways of going through chords. Here I'm going through blocked chords in the right hand, and then I do blocked chords in the left hand. Those are the most obvious ones, right? And these actually sound quite nice because we built in some voice leading. They're simple triads, but they're quite straightforward. And this is the most standard way to kind of accompany music. Here we have the same idea, but in both hands. Left hand is blocked chords and the right hand is blocked chords. Now we get into the realm of bass lines. Obviously you can just have a bass line going on at the piano. That could just be your only accompaniment. That's absolutely fine. It does still help. But then you can bring in the blocked chords in your right hand with a bass line in your left. And then you can enhance that bass line by turning it into octaves and giving it a lot of kind of weight in the sound. Then we can take that block chord shape and turn it into a kind of interesting pattern. So we've got an alternating pattern here going on. And the left hand is just simple block chords, but the right hand's giving a kind of interesting percussive rhythmical element to the whole piece. Now here we can bring in extra chords, which is a bit like reharmonizing, but it still follows the bass line's primary chord. It's kind of maybe a suspension chord in the right hand. Now, this is an interesting rhythm. Both hands are kind of connected very much so. It's called a kind of Clave rhythm. It's used a lot in pop music at the moment, nowadays around 2018. So this really plays into the piano's kind of percussive power here, where we've got the normal kind of octave bass line, but you've got this kind of repeating 6/8 pattern over the chords. You can see I'm changing them a little bit, but essentially they follow the kind of triadic pattern that we're used to. Next we have the same again, but the left hand has just got these small little grace notes which are kind of going very briefly before the two octaves. And now we've got a varied rhythm in the left hand, which is what creates kind of real interest in your accompaniments. When you've got these cross rhythms going on and the bass line's kind of pushing out the rhythm of the right hand, which is quite standard. So this one's quite in depth with the bass line, at least rhythmically anyway. And these things are quite good when you've got a vamp. You've got something that's just going on and on. It's the same thing in the right hand, but different kind of bass lines in the right. So now we've got an interesting thing where the right hand has got kind of two chords in a kind of ostinato pattern. The left hand's doing a very simple octave thing with a few grace notes here and there. And now the left hand does kind of blocked chords or an alternating chord pattern. So you can see how we're layering up all these options between the two hands here and starting to make stuff that sounds kind of really quite in depth. So now we get into the world of arpeggiation, which is a really, really important one for you to kind of explore. Here I'm just taking kind of simple chords and arpeggiating them in the right hand. And then we bring in the left hand. But it's just doing the bass notes of the chords. It's not arpeggiating yet. And of course we can do the left hand only with arpeggiation. And then we can do both hands in octaves. So they're playing the same notes but an octave apart. But arpeggiation can go beyond this. Here we now have both hands doing a slightly more independent thing. Whilst it moves up, they move up together. They're kind of speaking to each other through one pattern. They're not playing the same thing. And we can take this, of course, further by turning it into a more melodic right hand. And then taking that idea of melodic right hand even further. And then as our final example, we have a slightly jazz-related kind of thing. So a classic walking bass in the left and blocked seventh chords in the right. Note that the right hand is doing a kind of syncopation when it plays chords often. Not simple block chords starting on the first beat of the bar. Cool, hope all that was useful, you guys. I'll see you in the next video.